This is video 1.6 to review the concept 1.6, which is graphing to find the points of intersection. So here's example 1. The goal is to graph the rules y equals 2x minus 10 and y equals negative 3x plus 5. In order to graph these two functions, we need to remember what the numbers stand for. So hopefully you remember they stand for something, but listen carefully to the review of what they stand for, and then you'll use this to graph them. So let's take a look. M is the number in front of x, as you can see there. M is always your growth. It will always describe how much you grow by. Now what's important is that M is in front of the x value. It's the factor in front of x. The second value, the B value, is the starting value. That's where you're going to start on your graph, or if we're looking at a real life situation like the big race that you're going to see soon, or a tile pattern, that's always where you start with. That's what happens at the very beginning, at 0, at time 0, at figure 0, and so on. Another way we talk about this is we call it the y-intercept. That's really important to the graph of this function. That'll be the y-intercept where it crosses the y-axis. And remember, on a graph, this is your y-axis, and your x-axis is the horizontal axis. So if we're talking about y-intercept, it's a y, it's the vertical axis. So let's review the steps for graphing. So when we graph these functions, our first step is to plot the starting value. We have to find somewhere to start, so we're going to start at the starting value. So for this first function, 2x minus 10, the starting value is negative 10. So let's get my graph set up so I can actually graph these functions. So I'm just going by ones in each direction because I looked at my numbers and they're fairly small, and that should fit. I'm just labeling every other line because it gets really crowded and I can't fit it in there. And I'm going to start by plotting negative 10 because negative 10 is the start. Now remember, it's the start on the y-axis. It's how far you'll start up or down, and in this case it's negative 10. Our second step to graphing these functions is to use the growth to find more points. So we're going to use the growth for this next rule, this same rule, 2x minus 10, and in this case the growth is 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find, from point negative 10, I'm going to walk up 2, and I'm going to go over 1. That's because every time I go over 1, I have to grow by 2. So as I'm going to the right, I'm growing by 2 units up. That's what the growth stands for. So I'm going to grow by 2 and over 1. And I can do it again and again and plot an infinite number of points, really, by using this pattern. So once you get about 3 points counting, you probably could see what would make a straight line. Just be super careful when you're graphing. It's not that hard, but you got to be careful. So the next question, the next statement, the answer, we're going to do the same thing for the other rule. We have to graph it on the same graph in order to find the point of intersection. So negative 3x plus 5. Remember, we start with our starting value, so in this case it's 5, so we're going to go up to y equals 5 and plot that point. That's where we start. Now in this case our m value is negative 3, so that means we're going to grow by negative 3. So I'm going to walk down 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to go over to the next figure, is the way we used to talk about it. I'm going to go over to the next value for x. And I'm going to repeat that process over and over again. I'm going to go down 3 and then over 1. And I'm going to plot and continue until I get enough points to draw a nice straight line. So now I have both these graphs using their starting value and their growth. Now the question is asking, what is the point of intersection? Because that was the whole goal. That's the goal of this concept, to find points of intersection. Well, the point of intersection for this graph is where the two lines cross. Intersection meaning crossing. So if I look at the point of intersection, it's that point right there where the green and the pink line crossed. That point has coordinates of 3, negative 4. So the answer to this question is 3, negative 4. That is the point of intersection. So hopefully this concept is one that you will be successful with. Number one challenge is to just be careful and not mix up the start and the growth. So your practice today is short. You just have 4 sets of graphs. Just be really careful and be cognizant and careful with the numbers you're using. And make sure to ask lots of questions if you're not sure. So good luck and enjoy the math.